Hi, guys. Welcome to our daily encounter. As many of us will be going to worship with other believers today, it might be helpful for us to consider what our motivation is for doing so. For some, it might be that that's just part of our routine. That's what we do every week. We go to work Monday through Friday. We're off on Saturday. And so Sunday we go to church. It's just something that we do. It's something that is a part of our routine. And that's why we go to church. For others, it might be pressure to go to church because of family members or loved ones who expect them to do that. So because of the expectations of others, they're motivated to go to church. For some, it might be just checking it off the list. They know that God wants them to go to church and to worship with other people. And so it's just really just fulfilling an obligation and checking it off the list so that they can, you know, feel better about the fact that they did something that God wanted them to do. And there could be a long list of reasons why one might be motivated to go and worship the Lord with other believers. But I think Psalm 42 gives us perhaps the best reason why we would want to do that. In Psalm 42, you have a situation where this person was not able to worship with the Lord. He remembers back in verse 4 how he used to go along with the throng and lead them in the procession to the house of God with a voice of joy and thanksgiving, a multitude keeping festival. I remember going and celebrating God in those various festivals and even leading the worship in those particular cases. And he's kind of lamenting the fact that he wasn't able to do that at this particular point in time. Maybe very similar to what some of us experienced in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and it disturbed a lot of our worship services. And there was this longing to get back together again, to be able to worship together again. And we had that desire to do that again. And that's what that reminds me of here in Psalm 42. But here, the psalmist reveals really why he wanted to meet with other people in worship. And it was really a longing for the Lord. In verse 1, it says, "As the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before him?" Or before God. And so talking about going up and appearing before God has a lot of allusions to actually going to Jerusalem and appearing before God there at the temple. But nonetheless, the reason that he wanted to go to the temple, the reason why he wanted to go back and lead the procession like he used to, was this deep longing and this deep thirst for the Lord. And he was wanting to be in the presence of God and to experience God in that way. And I would say that's probably the best reason why we would want to go and worship today. We should want to worship the Lord because we long for the Lord, because we thirst for the Lord, because maybe this week we've been out in the world, we've been battling temptations and struggles and trials and hardships, and we've seen what a wilderness this world truly is. And in the battles and in the difficulties, we've just incurred this great thirst, this deep thirst within us for the satisfaction that God can bring us as we worship him. And hopefully that's our desire today as we go to worship with other people, that we just desire to be in the presence of God. And it's not that we can't be in the presence of God any other day. Of course, we can always abide in the presence of God. But we really want to be saturated with the presence of God as we are entering into worship, not just with ourselves or within ourselves, but within a community of people in which not only we are worshiping, but the person beside us is worshiping, the person in front of us, the person behind us. The whole community is just brought together in one spirit of worship. And in doing so, we just want to immerse ourselves in the presence of God together. And that should be our longing and our desire, is to contact God today in our worship service. And so whatever our motivations might usually be for going to worship, perhaps it'd be good for us to kind of reconsider that and say, you know what, today, as I worship with other people, I'm going to do it out of a longing for God. out of a deep, abiding thirst for the Lord. And as we said in a previous devotion last year, the way that we become thirsty is one, by being empty, by not having, by maybe going through a span of time in which we haven't been contacting the Lord, and then we become thirsty. But the other way to become thirsty is by just thinking about the Lord, thinking about the goodness of the Lord, the beauty of the Lord, the majesty of the Lord, thinking about how wonderful and lovely he is. And in doing that, it'll cause this thirst to just rise up within us as we desire him. Kind of like if you think about a cold drink. Maybe you weren't thirsty before, but you begin to think about a nice cold drink, and all of a sudden you begin to thirst for that cold drink because your mind is focused on that cold drink. That's the same thing that would happen as we focus on the goodness of God, the love of God, the compassion of God, the grace of God. As we think about all the good things that there are about God, it'll cause us to thirst for him. So maybe it'd be good before we go to worship to kind of sit and just think about the Lord. Think about the goodness of God, the love of God, all these other things mentioned. And in doing so, I think it will cause a thirst within us to arise. And that thirst will cause us to be motivated to not just meet in a building and sit in a pew, but to really pour our hearts out to the Lord and really seek his presence as we worship him. So here's some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.